Giuseppe, welcome to the AstroBen podcast. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Very exciting to be with you.
Good. Well, let's dive straight in. Could you start by explaining what the Moon Village Association is and how it came to be?
Okay, so let's do the other way around. How it came to be and then what it is. So I've worked 16 years in the on the International Space Station, and I did realize in many capacities, but mainly I've been responsible for developing as head of division all the large payload on board the Columbus laboratory. I worked in ESA 35 years altogether. And during this period, I realized that, of course, the program was very complex, cumbersome, difficult to get other participant. Public was a little bit, let's say, not informed what was going on. So I, of course, saw the ISS is a wonderful, as you all know, very successful program bringing together many countries, but maybe it was not the right, let's say, modus operandi for the next step of humanity. And so, since I am also human space flight director of the International Academy of Astronautics, I started the process of reflection. What would be the next step beyond ISS? Now, so many people say it's obvious, is the moon, but okay, we wanted to check with a number also experts from different countries, and we created a group which was called basically a reflection group, which took a while to think about that. Basically, obviously, the moon now, obviously, we were talking about 2016, was the next step. The other so this is one set of consideration. The other set of consideration is that we start to see what was the impact of non-governmental organization in general on the life of the citizen, meaning to health, to human rights, environment, and so on and so forth. And obviously, and how is the comparison on NGO impact, in space? And the outcome of this meeting, of this work, which was presented in Adelaide, as far as I remember, was that in fact many impact, major impact, has been happening from NGO in non-space business, but in the space business, they were either lobby organization or national organization or large organization, of course, like the International Astronautical Federation, as well as the International Command of Astronautics, but they were not thematic. So they are, of course, taking everything together. So when you put together these two elements, and so the consideration, by the way, of this NGO assessment was that we did need to create probably an NGO specific for exploration in general at that time. Then when you put the two elements together, the moon as the next step, on the other side, the need to create an NGO in the field of exploration, then came clearly the idea of setting up an organization which we called Moon Village, because at that time it was a used, let me say, definition, concept, which was large enough to take into account the multi-stakeholder, basically, participation to the lunar exploration and utilization. We could have called lunar community, whatever. I mean, you could come with whatever names, but the concept, which was captured by the Moon Village, did reflect the idea, which is basically then the goal of the organization, which is basically to act as a platform to bring together stakeholders from all countries, as many countries as possible, which are space agency, government, industry, international organization, NGO, and of course, last but not least, the public. And so that was the origin and the goal of the organization. And so that what we this was initiated in 2017. The founding conference took place at ISU in November 2017. So I had the pleasure to be the co-founder of this organization. And so therefore, the bottom line is the goal is to try to bring together, with possibly specific activities, all these kind of stakeholders. And so that I would say is the main goal of the MBA. Of course, then there can be discussion about activity, which kind of activity, what is the impact, and so on and so forth. I hope that
Mm.
is the answer to your two questions.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, no, it's great, and I definitely see the similarities with the International Space Station, because space, more than any other industry, you could argue, it really does require collaboration, international collaboration. But what countries and institutions are involved in this? Because obviously it's been about 8 years. So how many current participants and members do you have of the Moon Village Association? And were they all have they just been added? Is it sort of like the Artemis Accords where you're trying to get more members all the time?
Well, okay, so let's start from the number. So first of all, you can join the organization either as individuals, and that's the reason why they call association, as well as institutional. Okay, so there is a double possibility. So in terms of country, at the moment, if I remember correctly, we are at 56, between 56 and 60 countries representative from different these 56 to 60 countries at the level of the overall participation of people which are involved. Obviously, the MVA it's a voluntary organization. Just to be clear, it might not be so clear, but let's state that is clear. And of course, we have a few staff for permanent function, but they are certainly minority, so there are maybe two or three depending on the type of project and activity. In terms of organization, we have mainly industry. In general, we don't ask, we never did to get space agency as an institutional member because, I mean, space agency do not participate as a specific, let's say, members of any organization. So therefore, I think we do have, and all of this can be seen on the website. We have an MBA website. We have within around 30 institutional members. So we have industry, but we have university, we have some research center. So this is the kind of participation that we have. And of course, what is important to note that many of these people, and also who is not a member, can participate in some of our activity if they like so.
Hmm. No, that's interesting. Is there a particular reason why space agencies aren't involved, like NASA, ESA, Roscosmos? Is that just because they obviously have their own agendas and their own commitments and uh, plans, or what's the reason that they're sort of how does the MVA engage with them, and why is it separate?
No, they are involved. Maybe
Mm,
I explain they are involved in several activities, as I will explain you later, but they are not permanently, let's say, in a permanent function like an institutional members. That's what I meant. Uh,
got
uh,
it.
we do work regularly, and this is one of the goals, as we will see in some specific activity, which is valid from the lunar governance to many others. We are able to being the organization. That's an important feature which needs to be understood. The major feature of the organization is uninformal, neutral, and of course, let's say the goal is to bring people to talk to each other, especially organization and country which have difficulties, like for instance China and United States. As you certainly are aware, they are not able to communicate directly, but by means of neutral organization like the MVA, they are participating. And
Mm,
I'm pleased to say that we had several examples of organization from China, big delegation from those countries, which have been very active in some of our activity, in particular in the area of lunar governance, as you wish we can discuss later. So the answer is the space agents do participate. Of course, we ask the people to participate at a personal level because, you know, if people represent the agency and the government, then this becomes a duplicate of the United Nations, which obviously it is exactly never meant to be. This
Mm.
is the complementarity, let's say, the so-called track two type of discussion, which will allow and will facilitate then formal discussion when there are, let's say, discussion at the level of United Nations. And we have several examples which I could quote to you where the MVA has been instrumental to act as incubator of some of the activity which then have been taken over by the proper, let's say, format. So
Mm.
we are preparing the ground. We're discussing. We try to create some confidence building. Talk to the people of the different countries, and then hopefully, when we do involve unofficially many of the people in the different high level position in some of those countries, and so in that basically we move forward to try to achieve some specific goal. One important point I'd like to mention, being myself a program manager since many, many years, when we started this organization, the first thing I said to everyone, and I think this was clearly also included in the statute, is that I did not want to wish to create a talk show. There is no, as a seasoned, let's say, space manager, to be honest, I was not interested, I'm not interested to create, place where you people meet to each other a couple of times per year, shake their hands. Those forum exist,
Yeah.
and there is no reason, and they are increasing. What we are missing, and we were missing, and the moment we are still are the only one, is operational organization which are able to deliver a concrete, let's say, result, which then can be provided to the actual delegations. And if you want, I can give you a couple of examples, if you like.
Yeah, I'd really like to hear some examples
Yeah, yeah.
because I love
Otherwise,
the
yeah,
yeah, no, I love the cooperative and informal approach to collaboration. I think that's great,
yeah,
and it's kind of the correct framework really because no one owns the moon, and
right,
it's a
right,
whole economy that
right.
should benefit
Yes,
humanity in
yes,
total. So
yes.
yeah,
Well,
give me a couple of examples. I'm
yeah.
very
Well,
interested.
so let's take two examples because they may be better. Okay, let's first of all let's take the International Moon Day. So, in view of one of our goals being to involve basically countries, as many countries as possible, and the public, we propose. By the way, we are a member of the International Astronautical Federation and observer status of the COPUS, which allow us, of course, to participate actively in the COPUS. So, in that capacity, in 2021, we made a proposal to create and set up an International Moon Day with a goal to basically, on the 20th of July of every year, to take a moment of reflection, what has been done, and of course, what are the actual activity going on in the different countries, and have an interface with the public. So which will be also school. So you can look at it like a World Space Week for the moon in a certain way. And so we made this proposal, and I have to say I was surprised how fast, because we are an NGO. In general, NGO do not make proposal. Member states make proposal. Okay,
Mm.
NGO are observer, but for a number of reasons which we don't need to go in, this proposal got endorsed immediately and rushed to the General Assembly of 2021, and it got approved. So from the time that we proposed, August, because this was the COVID period, you might certainly remember, between the COPOS meeting, August 2021, and December 2021, we got this approved by the General Assembly. And this, as far as I know, is a record. It was, I think, was overwhelming support by everyone, many delegations. They were telling, but why, we don't have it already? I said, yeah, we
Yeah,
don't have it. That's
it
why we are proposing.
maybe it was because everyone was so distracted and depressed with COVID. It was something that
I
was
don't know.
positive and something everyone
Well,
could all agree on.
well, I have to say we were also lucky because then you know what happened at the beginning of 2022. So it would have been enough let's say, few months of delay, and this will not happen. So IMD, the approval and the setting up of the IMD, which now exists, and so we are already in the third year, 2022, 3 and 4, is there. So we took the initiative to coordinate pretty much in a similar way like the World Space Week Association does in the next few days, the World Space Week, which, as you know, is at the beginning of October, as well as the Asteroid Day for the Asteroid Foundation. So this is a very concrete result, which we have a number of countries. And again, we created a separate web page, which is internationalmoonday.org, where you can see all the countries which have participated. And I have to say, of course, we started from zero, obviously, since it was not there.
Yeah.
We are now, this year, we managed to get 41 countries. And what is more important is the distribution. The way the IMD works is we have what is called global events, which are events basically made at the regional level, if you like. So in Italy, in France, in any countries, which we encourage to group together with other countries, because the goal is a strategic goal from the MVA, but in general, to try to increase, to multiply the possibility of cooperation.
Yeah.
So it has a goal. I'm not sure it's the same for the other organizations, but for ours, from MVA, the IMD is a strategic platform to try to engage and let the people engage with the public as well within their own countries, within their own, let's say, different industry or whatever. So there are two sets of things: the global events, but then there are also main events. Main events are events which are live, broadcasted to all the world. And I have to say that we started in 2022 with the main event in Marshall, in Huntsville, Alabama, where is the old Apollo program, obviously, was initiated. Last year, it was made in Korea, and this year, and I had the pleasure to be myself there for a while, we had this very successful event in Harbin, China. So China did an excellent job in opening up and basically participating in this main event. They organized a wonderful event. We managed to get representatives from the U.S. State Department to participate with video, as well as many other countries. You see, it's a point in time where that specific place of the main event is the center of the discussion about lunar exploration. So it is a strategic tool for that. So that's one example. The other example is the fact that, as you know, many missions are going to the moon in an uncoordinated manner and with very small amount of information. As you have seen also the issue about debris collidence avoidance maneuver in lunar orbit. And basically there is no mechanism. There is the OST, basically, which is, you know, Outer Space Treaty, which is the mother or the father of all space, let's say, space law. But unfortunately, or fortunately for the time, do not give any indication how to behave on the moon or around the moon. Now, when it becomes when you have one or two organization, especially if they are at state level, it's relatively easy to communicate with each other. But when the number increases enormously, as you know, is the case for the lunar mission, where you have also basically private mission as well as a government mission, it becomes a little bit complex. And so we created an organization which is called Global Expert Group on Sustainable Lunar Activity, GEXLA, in 2021, I believe. And this brings together literally all the major stakeholders. We have been aiming from Russia to China, to United States, to India. Well, I guess all the major, but also some other. We had about 38 participants. And what this group has produced a document which is a framework basically is this document. I don't know if you can see that, if you can read it.
Yeah.
In any case, this is a document which is called Recommended Framework Key Element for Peaceful and Sustainable Lunar Activity, which is in a nutshell is the rule of the game. So, in other words, how these individuals, so not country, individuals, see how to behave in a number of topics like lunar environment, like information sharing, and so on and so forth. So, this document was produced in 2 years. It's been published and presented several times to the United Nations, and this has happened basically in 2023. And I can say that this, therefore, has increased the level of visibility of these issues at the level of the UN. And the matter of the fact is that now we have a nearly approved a group which is called ATLAC, which is Action Team for Lunar, let's say, consultation, which is in the phase of being approved, which is not, let's say, as advanced as, of course, we would have hoped. But as you can imagine, COPOS move step by step because it has to move by consensus. But I can say without any doubt that this has been an incubator,
Mm.
basically, of bringing up this issue and getting this approved. So yeah, I'm to read some water. So I think this is an excellent example. And now we are continuing in an operational phase because the question is, we need to deep dive in some of the topics. Again, two examples. One is the sustainable lunar environment. How are we going to ensure that we are not going to do the same mess that we have been doing with our, let's say, orbital environment, debris, but also, let's say, how to basically to find a balance between the scientists that they like to keep a pristine environment because it's the only chance that they have to find out, say, basically at inside the lunar craters where possibly the water might be, and the commercial. That, of course, at a certain point in time, they need to make money. Otherwise, what we hope to realize, which is the lunar economy, will not exist.
Well, I wanted to ask you about the commercial side of it because since the MVA was founded in 2017, obviously you've got a lot of private companies that are, making commitments, and you've got Blue Origin as part of the national program involved, and SpaceX, I'm sure, will be, going to the moon as part of their longer term plan to train Starship and get to Mars. How do you feel about commercial companies, and do they have the same responsibility as countries and governments and NGOs, or do you think they're more sort of focused on return of investment? And how do you get them on board before they've even started?
Well, of course, we in this group GEXLA we had many private organizations. You can see the list on this document. So the response, Lockheed Martin, just without making any publicity, is one of our major sponsors. They realized from the very beginning the responsible utilization of the moon and the exploration of the moon is, of course, in their advantage. So the short answer is, in general, the industry is very open to discuss. Also because we are still far away from actually making money. To be clear, I mean, we should be, as I said, very pragmatic and with the feet on the ground, thinking to the moon. But we do not, as yet, have, let's say, oxygen production on the moon. We don't have, as yet, a routine, let's say, operation of industrial carbon. So at the moment, is the time where we need to find the role of the different party. Again, another example, the day after tomorrow, I think on Friday, together with the International Astronautical Federation, we will have a webinar, webcast of about 1 hour, which will talk about, which is GNF, Global Network Forum, as a part of the IF of this year, where the topic is sustainable lunar activity, the next challenge.
Yes.
And there, I will be the moderator, and we will have two persons from industry and two representing science, which is in particular COSPAR, as you know, and the International Astronomical Union, which are the two large organizations. And so all these kind of discussion, they need to get started because we have to find the boundary and the behavior, common behavior. There is no fight, but I think we need to let the people talk to each other.
How do you?
So that, yeah.
Because you're so integrated with the future lunar economy. You know who the players are. What's your personal prediction on how humanity's presence on the moon is going to play out? Because it's great to see sort of visuals of a sort of different domes and different areas, industry and all working together. But how do you think it's going to play out? Say in 20 years' time, do you think there's going to be a decent enough presence on the moon, and who's going to be involved? Do you think, if you had to make a prediction?
Well, first of all, we have a prediction in the sense that the Moon Village, as you know, it's a multi-stakeholder, so which will involve in the concept Artemis element, ILRS element, or any other element. So we have been thinking to what could be the Moon Village 2050. And by the way, the theme of the meeting of the main event in China was Moon Village 2050, the next home for humanity. So just so I think this is precisely what we are discussing in terms of concrete. I think what we need is from a technical standpoint. Of course, the first step will be to go back to the moon with humans, and I think now we are profiling a kind of mini race. I don't want to call race, but in any case, we all know that both China and the United States are aiming to land humans on the moon in the next few years. Who is going to be the first? I mean, we should not speculate on that. It's not relevant. I think it's humanity which will go back to the moon. In terms of what happens next, now that the cost has been reduced substantially, I think we have, the prediction in the space flight, they always been behind schedule. We all know, and being, I would say, a seasonal, if not old, or as you call it, person involved in space, we always have seen that whatever we have predicted, the reality has always gone much longer than that. So I think in 20 years, I do not see a city full of thousands of people, like some people might consider, but I will hope, and that's what the work we try to do, a number of infrastructure which hopefully communicate with each other, because that is the key. We have to make sure that they communicate, and therefore they might even work in synergy, not
Yeah.
only in case of problem. So my personal prediction, feeling, is that we might reach 6 months of human presence on the moon, so the equivalent of the space station, maybe indeed something like 10 to 15 years. What happened then is very much depending on what we find there. What we need to be fair vis-a-vis the public is that we should not sell, how shall I say, the skin of the horse, of the bear, before you kill the bear. So at this point in time, like at the time of the space shuttle, there was a huge prospect of orbital industry, producing pharmaceutical industry. I was there and I know exactly what it means in the beginning of the 80s. And this has become a big disillusion, which basically brought a number of organizations to leave the space. So we have
Mm.
to be very concrete, meaning there is now a time of exploration. We know that there are resources. The question is, are those resources economical to be used, the in situ resource utilization, or it costs less to bring it from Earth. So all of that, and will basically the lunar settlement, Moon Village, independent to say 80 to 90%, 95%, that's something which is not clear, and that's why it's so important the exploration of the moon, because it will, when people talk about Mars, of course, I am a Mars fan myself since I was a kid. But then, as I grew older, I realized that maybe in my lifetime, it would have been complex. Well, of course, I wish to live as long as possible to see that. But we need to be on the moon to demonstrate that we can actually use and be kind of nearly independent
Yeah.
from the Earth to move forwards beyond the moon.
No, sure. And I think that's a great thing about the space industry in 2024 is that it's not a choice between the moon or Mars. There's
No.
companies and countries going for both, which is fantastic. I was wondering what you're doing the International Moon Day, which is a great idea. Which I just realised was on the 20th of July because that's when Neil Armstrong and
Yes,
Buzz
of
Aldrin
course.
went to the moon.
Yes.
Stating the obvious there, I'm aware,
Yes.
which is a
Yes.
fantastic way to engage with the public.
Right.
But how do you feel the public? What is the public perception of about the benefits of a lunar presence? Because if you look at the International Space Station, I think the average person really takes for granted that there's been a permanent presence in low Earth orbit for the last 2 decades. And how do we keep that excitement once humanity does go back to the moon? How do
Well,
it's
yeah,
yeah.
I understand. What is the level of excitement of the public related to the lunar? Well, we live. I was asked this question at that time. I had the pleasure to live through the 60s. So I went through all the Apollo missions as I was a little kid, and I got involved receiving information from a number of sources, and there was a headline every other day. Every other day, the front page of the newspaper, they were about this mission, this result, or whatever, not mentioning only the moon, but all the other previews. So we are not obviously 60 years down the road. We are not in the same environment for reason which you know better than me, being a media person. So I don't think we should be looking to anything similar in terms of resonance. I think what is important is that the people, and particularly the young generation, in fact, we have an activity which is called Towards the Moon Village generation, they understand the value of going to the moon. Why are we going to the moon? Is it a waste of time, a waste of money, or is it an investment? And I think, coming back to your question, many of the events which are happening in the country around the world, of course, they are positive because they organize event. Otherwise, they would not organize event themselves. But I can say that a lot of developing country, and that is one of the surprise, are much more excited than the people in the let's say the West side. So I think there is a sense of adventure, a sense of let's say mystery, going to the moon, which I think is present and drives a lot of interest and of course towards STEM from many of these people. And I think it is our job, yours as well, in particular, as a media, to try to do that. In fact, one of the problems that we have, since we are discussing that, is to sensibilize media, because it's not our job, to be a media organization. We are not a media organization. We are not equipped for doing that. But I think it's good that some of the media follow this. We had a wonderful example in China where CGTN covered, probably for the first time, because we didn't have similar coverage in the other event, covered extremely well basically the International Moon Day, because they spoke about the Chinese program, but they used that to leverage to talk about the 1.4 billion individuals which they are in China. And there is a number of interviews, including a very long interviews with myself, which went over to see what does it mean for the people, how we can work together. So I think, in conclusion, I think there is a strong interest. I don't think we can, and I think it's our job to explain that going to the moon is not harming the environment, but is actually possibly helping the climate change. But we have to talk about this thing. We cannot simply say that hundreds of rockets do not produce an impact on the atmosphere. I think we have to talk openly. We should not put it under the carpet. And again, there, it's a point which we are touching within the activity of the MVA. What is the relationship between the lunar, is the lunar exploration helpful for the climate change on Earth? We
Mm.
need to bring you know very well that the Earth and the Moon, they were together. We have just been separated. I think one of our jobs is to bring them again together, not physically, obviously, because we cannot do that, but from the point of view of the issues. There are common issues. You know, we are here, you and you, talking because there is the moon. Otherwise, as we have seen in many other planets, life as we know it, intelligent life, would not be there. So we have a profound connection with the moon, and this connection needs to be explained, investigated. I mean, it's not clear completely, apart from a lot of, let's say, impact that we know very well, like the sea, the level of the sea, let's say the period of the womb. I mean, all things which we all know, but the thing is even deeper than that. And I think going to the moon should help us to bring these things together.
I completely agree. And I think since the dawn of time, since humans have been living in caves, everyone's looked up at the moon, from the ancient Greeks to the Romans,
Right.
to the Egyptians. And there's always been that fascination with the moon as our celestial neighbor. And I think that's key. It's hard to articulate, but it's definitely a big part of the why go to the moon. It's because it's there and it belongs to all of us, and you can see it from anywhere on Earth. And that's what I really like about the MVA, is the fact you're trying to bring together all
Yeah.
nations, and especially emerging space nations like Egypt, which has recently joined, because it shouldn't just be the NASA's and the Roscosmos and ESA who have access to the moon. So yeah, what's your sort of
Absolutely.
final thoughts about why it's important that that all non spacefaring nations are involved in humanity's plan for the moon?
Well, as I said, since it is a major step for humanity, you would like to bring as many of the country together. So that is the first consideration. The other consideration, as I said, I'm sure you remember that when Apollo 8 went for the first time around the moon, what I think Jim Lovell, if I remember correctly, or somebody else said, we went to look for the moon, but we found the Earth. So in
Mm.
reality, you all know that the environmental let's say sensitivity started to become more important after, let's say, the Apollo saw for the first time the tiny Earth in the darkness of sky. Well, I think this is an important aspect that we need to work with it. I am still hoping to get in the next 2 or 3 years an application where you can basically see when you go outside and you see the moon, then there should be a camera from the surface of the moon which looks to the Earth. And so I think there you say, okay, but I am there. So I think this is some. I mean, it's not so far away. I think we are getting there, especially when we get now lunar lander, which will last for a longer period of time. I think it will be possible to do first a test. So in conclusion, I would say, as I said, the integration of the Earth and the Moon is only possible via a responsible and, of course, cooperative lunar exploration and utilization. And this is what the MVA is trying to help. Of course, we are a very small organization. It's a voluntary organization. And as I keep saying to the people, when I've been in ESA for 35 years, industry was working for me because I paid them. So I paid them, and so I had to make sure that they were doing whatever we wanted to with the specification and within a timeline, within a schedule. Now in the MVA, I see hundreds of people working without one single euro because, okay, it's a voluntary, because they believe in what you're doing. And so for me, this is a very big, let's say, motivation to see that this is an interest, not only mine in a little corner, but really it's an interest which is shared around the world.
Fantastic. And you finished on a good point on how, having a camera facing Earth, and that's the difference. I think now is that when we do go back to the moon, we're going to get amazing high definition footage, and billions of people around the world can watch it on these
Right.
smartphone devices live,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
it's a lot more connected. Which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, look, I love what you're doing, and I'll continue to be a fan of the MVA. And good luck in the future. Thanks, Giuseppe.
Okay. Thank you so much. And of course, please spread the words around as much as you can because we need that. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And when you have the link of this interview, maybe you can please just send us that we can put on our website. Okay. Thank you.